Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Gray, psychiatrist, author, and researcher of human temperament for over 3 decades. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on one of the most misunderstood and quietly complex personalities of the Myers-Briggs spectrum, the ISFJ, the defender. They are dependable, warm-hearted, and loyal to the core, but cross certain lines. And you'll discover just how deep their dislikes run. In today's deep dive, we're counting down the 10 things the ISFJ absolutely hates, starting with number 10. Let's get into it. 10. Being put on the spot. You might think it's no big deal to ask someone to share their opinion in a meeting or to say a few words at a party, but for the ISFJ, this feels like an emotional ambush. ISFJs are introverted processors. They need time to reflect and prepare before speaking. Their thoughts run deep, but they're internal. Forcing them to react spontaneously in public makes them feel exposed and vulnerable. Psychologically, this links back to their dominant cognitive function, introverted sensing, SI. ISFJs operate from stored experiences and data, things they've already reflected on. When you pull them into the spotlight without warning, it short-circuits their natural rhythm. They may stumble over words, blush with embarrassment, replay the moment for days afterward, mentally criticizing themselves. And the worst part? They'll never say anything to you about how uncomfortable it made them feel. If you want the best of an ISFJ, give them time. Let them reflect. Then watch how thoughtful, articulate, and powerful their voice can be when they're ready. 9. Public conflict or confrontation. Conflict is like emotional static to an ISFJ. It clogs their senses, makes their stomach twist, and can stay with them long after the argument ends, even if they weren't directly involved. Why do ISFJs hate this so much? Because harmony is sacred to them. Their auxiliary function is extroverted feeling, FE, a function laser-focused on keeping the emotional temperature around them stable. Loud disagreements, personal attacks, or people who argue just to win strike at the heart of what the ISFJ values, emotional safety. They don't want to take sides. They don't want to see people hurt. And they definitely don't want to be forced to speak up in the middle of a firestorm. What they prefer instead: calm, respectful communication, time to process and respond, private conversations, not public showdowns. If you want to speak to an ISFJ about something serious, do it gently, one-on-one, and with kindness. Their sensitivity isn't weakness, it's depth of compassion. At 8, disrespecting traditions or established values. To the ISFJ, tradition isn't just a dusty old custom. It's a thread that connects generations, families, communities, even entire cultures. It represents continuity, identity, and a quiet kind of sacredness. So what happens when someone rolls their eyes at a holiday ritual, mocks religious practices, or shrugs off the way things have always been? To others, it might seem like harmless rebellion. To the ISFJ, it's deeply offensive, like a thread has been carelessly snapped. Their dominant function, introverted sensing, Psi, holds on to past experiences with reverence. They don't cling to tradition out of stubbornness. They cling because it brings structure, meaning, and emotional security. Disrespecting these rituals can feel, quite literally, like disrespecting their identity. Here's how it often plays out. Someone suggests skipping family Christmas this year. A friend dismisses a cultural custom the ISFJ grew up with. A coworker openly mocks a sentimental tradition during a team event. The ISFJ might not say anything. They'll probably just nod, smile politely, and go quiet. But inside they're hurt. Tradition to an ISFJ is not about routine, it's about roots. When you mock their values, you're pulling at the foundation of who they are. They don't need you to love tradition as much as they do, but they do expect basic respect, especially if it's tied to family, heritage, or faith. Don't underestimate the depth behind the quiet ISFJ. What looks like calm compliance is often a world of meaning and principle, held together by rituals they've honored since childhood. 7. Being taken for granted. Here's the truth. ISFJs are some of the most dependable people you'll ever meet. They show up. They help. They sacrifice. Not because they want applause, but because it's in their DNA to care. But here's what they absolutely hate: when their loyalty becomes expected, when their kindness becomes invisible, when their help becomes entitlement. ISFJs are givers. But like anyone, they need to feel seen. A simple thank you goes a long way. Acknowledgement, appreciation, and even the occasional "are you okay?" can make a massive difference. But when people start assuming the ISFJ will always pick up the slack, or worse, start demanding it, they feel used, even betrayed. Typical red flags for them. Being asked to stay late with no recognition, constantly listening to others' problems but never being asked about their own, people only reaching out when they need something. ISFJs rarely complain, but don't mistake that for indifference. Silence isn't consent. Sometimes it's heartbreak in disguise. They'll quietly pull away, or worse, they'll burn out from giving too much. And when they finally say no, it's often after they've reached their absolute limit. It's in these quiet acts of love that the ISFJ shines. But every star needs fuel. Appreciation is their fuel. If you have an ISFJ in your life, say thank you. Don't let their love go unnoticed. 6 last-minute changes and disorganization. Spontaneity might be thrilling for some people, but for the ISFJ, it's a nightmare in disguise. If there's one thing they treasure, it's predictability. Not because they're rigid, but because it allows them to give their best, mentally, emotionally, and even physically. Their dominant function, introverted sensing, psi, thrives in environments where the details are known, the expectations are clear, and the future feels stable. So when someone casually says, "Hey, we changed the whole schedule, just roll with it," they may not realize they've thrown the ISFJ into internal chaos. Here's what happens. Their carefully planned day suddenly feels meaningless. Their mental energy is drained trying to recalibrate. Their quiet anxiety spikes, though you may never see it. It's not just about being annoyed. It's about being unprepared. They like knowing what's coming so they can meet expectations perfectly. That's how they show love. That's how they avoid disappointing others. And when that system gets disrupted, it hurts. This isn't about control, it's about care. ISFJs plan ahead because they want to be ready for you. To help. To serve. To bring peace. When you dismiss that, it feels like their effort didn't matter. Organization isn't a burden to the ISFJ, it's self-respect. It's emotional armor. It helps them maintain their inner world in a world that can often feel chaotic. What they hate. Group projects with no clear plan. Let's just wing it attitudes. People who constantly cancel or reschedule. Tasks with moving deadlines. What they love. Structure, stability. Schedules that are respected. People who give advance notice. If you want to stay close to an ISFJ, don't surprise them with pressure. Invite them with preparation. Even if they never tell you outright, they will notice how reliable you are. They will remember who respects their time and who doesn't. 5, harsh criticism, especially in public. Constructive feedback? Totally fine. ISFJs welcome it, especially when it's respectful, private, and focused on improvement. But harsh, impersonal, or public criticism, that's another story entirely. Few things unravel an ISFJ faster. Why? Because these quiet caretakers tie their worth to their work. Their sense of responsibility is so deeply ingrained that any critique of their effort can feel like a personal attack, even if that wasn't the intention. Let's break it down psychologically. Their introverted sensing as psi records every moment, especially the painful ones. Harsh words don't just bounce off, they imprint. Their extroverted feeling, phi, is wired to please, support, and maintain harmony. So being called out or criticized in front of others creates intense internal shame. It's not about ego. It's about emotional safety. What the ISFJ hates most in these moments: being corrected in front of others, sarcasm disguised as just joking, vague criticism with no clear solution, feeling like their effort wasn't even acknowledged. ISFJs internalize failure. You won't see a dramatic reaction, but trust me, they're replaying that moment over and over inside. They'll question everything, not just the work, but their value as a team member, a friend, even as a person. And the worst part? They'll never tell you how deeply it stung. When an ISFJ creates something, it's never half-hearted. Whether it's a spreadsheet, a birthday card, or a homemade dinner, they pour care into every detail. So criticism, even if valid, hits hard if it lacks empathy. What helps? Offering feedback privately, leading with appreciation. I really value your effort on this. Being specific about what to improve, not vague or personal, ending on encouragement. The next time you want to correct an ISFJ, remember, compassion changes everything. They'll never forget how you made them feel. Before emotional neglect or coldness. You can break an ISFJ's heart without saying a single cruel word. All it takes is emotional distance. You see, ISFJs are emotional caretakers, empaths, healers. They feel your mood before you say a word. They'll check on you, bring you soup, listen for hours, even when they're emotionally exhausted themselves. But when the emotional current isn't returned, when they reach out and get nothing, that's what they hate. More than hate, it's something they fear. ISFJs invest quietly, consistently, and without fanfare. But emotional reciprocity isn't a luxury to them, it's a need. A relationship, romantic, familial, or even platonic, where they feel emotionally shut out will slowly drain the life out of them. You know what they can't stand? People who never open up. I'm fine responses that clearly aren't fine. Cold dismissals of feelings, emotionally unavailable partners or friends. The ISFJ doesn't need constant validation, they need connection. They don't want dramatic displays. They want honesty, warmth, presence. They don't expect others to be emotional in the same way they are. But they do expect engagement. Coldness makes them question whether they're even wanted, whether they matter. Here's the problem. ISFJs rarely voice when they need help. They assume others will just notice. But when no one does, it devastates them. They may begin to withdraw. They'll still be polite, still smile, but you'll sense it. The light behind their eyes dims. They stop initiating, stop opening up. They fade into the background. Not out of revenge, but out of self-protection. What they need instead. Warm gestures. Honest check-ins. How are you really? Emotional presence, even in silence. Reassurance that their care is seen and wanted. SFJs don't wear their wounds loudly, but they feel deeply. If you love one, don't just assume they're okay. Ask. Be present. Let them feel safe enough to share. You'll be amazed at the depth of love they give in return. 3. Being misunderstood or misjudged. The ISFJ isn't flashy. They don't shout their truth. They don't beg to be seen. But deep down, they carry a silent wish to be understood. When that doesn't happen, when people assume the worst, judge their intentions, or misread their kindness as manipulation, it crushes them. This isn't vanity. This is identity. Because ISFJs are not just helpers. They're protectors, listeners, steady hands in chaos. But when others don't take the time to understand why they do what they do, when people accuse them of being too quiet, too intense, too sensitive, too serious, or too stuck in the past, it cuts deep. And it happens more than you'd think. Psychologically speaking, their introverted sensing and extroverted feeling create a paradox. They remember everything, but don't always speak up. They feel everything, but mask it with a polite smile. They give endlessly, but hesitate to ask for anything back. So when someone misinterprets their silence as aloofness, or their planning as controlling, or their emotional support as clinginess, it's not just annoying. It feels like betrayal. The ISFJ isn't in it for the credit, but they do want to be seen clearly. Not perfectly, just truthfully. Here's what they hate. People assuming they're pushovers, being labeled as weak for being kind, being judged for needing routine or stability, being seen as boring, simple, or incapable of depth. The ISFJ's world is quiet, but it's profound. Misjudging them is like judging a book by its cover. A soft tone doesn't mean a soft mind. What ISFJs long for is recognition, not applause, not spotlight, but clarity. Let them know. I see you. I know your heart. I understand why you do what you do. Those words are everything. You know, the world rushes past the ISFJ, but those who pause long enough to really see them, they discover one of the richest, most loyal, most deeply layered souls in existence. Don't just accept the ISFJ. Understand them. 2. Letting people down or even feeling like they did. You want to know what keeps ISFJs up at night? It's not failure. It's the idea that they might have let someone down, that they forgot something, that someone is hurt, disappointed, or struggling because of them. Even if it's not their fault, even if no one's angry, even if no one knows, that's how deep their sense of duty runs. ISFJs are called defenders for a reason. Their identity is often rooted in being the protector, the caregiver, the one who holds things together, quietly and without fanfare. So when that image cracks, even just a little, it shakes them deeply. Their phi-psi loop, extroverted feeling plus introverted sensing, becomes a mental storm. Why didn't I do better? They were counting on me. I knew I should have double-checked. What if they're upset and just not saying anything? And worst of all, they won't tell you this. They'll just silently spiral. Letting people down, real or imagined, hits the ISFJ in the soul. They might replay the moment endlessly, even if the mistake was tiny, even if no one was harmed. This is because of their innate wiring. Introverted sensing, psi. They remember their missteps vividly. Extroverted feeling, phi. They prioritize harmony, others' well-being, and meeting expectations. So when they feel like they've dropped the ball, it's not just guilt. It's identity collapse. They may cry alone, stay up late rewriting an email, apologize unnecessarily, or isolate themselves, believing they don't deserve kindness. You know what ISFJs hate? Not being able to help, being told they disappointed someone. Missing a deadline or forgetting a detail, saying the wrong thing, even by accident. Watching someone suffer and not knowing how to fix it. ISFJs don't seek perfection. They seek reassurance that their effort meant something. When they feel they've failed someone, even just once, it can shake their entire sense of worth. So how do you help? Tell them this. You didn't let me down. It's okay. Things happen. Your heart is what I see, not your mistake. Those words can heal. Validation. Affirmation. The smallest gesture of "you're doing okay" can mean everything to an ISFJ. They don't need a parade. Just the knowledge that they didn't hurt anyone, and that they're still enough. ISFJs feel a sacred responsibility to care for others. That's their strength, but also their burden. Remind them, their worth isn't measured by perfection. It's measured by their presence, and that, my friends, is always enough. But one, feeling unappreciated. Let me tell you a secret about the ISFJ, the quiet warrior, the emotional anchor, the silent architect of so many people's happiness. They don't help to be praised. They don't serve to be seen. They don't give to get. But they do need to know it mattered, that they mattered. And when they don't, when their love is assumed, when their presence is expected, when their work is invisible, that's when the slow ache begins. ISFJs give endlessly, not because they want the spotlight, but because they believe love is shown through action. But what happens when no one looks? When their emotional labor becomes background noise? They won't rage. They won't demand attention. They'll just stop. Slowly, subtly, heartbreakingly, they'll begin to disappear from the lives they once held together. ISFJs aren't dramatic. They won't storm out. They'll just give less, speak less, show up less. Because somewhere inside, they've started believing that maybe they're just not valued. This is the core wound of the ISFJ, to be taken for granted. To pour out their soul into caring, building, remembering, sacrificing, and receive nothing back but silence. To be the emotional scaffolding for someone else's life, and never hear, "Thank you." What appreciation looks like to them, a simple, "I noticed what you did," and it meant a lot. Remembering their birthday for once, helping them without being asked, saying, "You always take care of us. Let me take care of you." ISFJs don't need grand gestures. They need genuine recognition. Something that says, "I see you. I remember you. You matter, even when you're quiet." That's the moment the ISFJ comes back to life. When they're reminded that their love has weight, and that someone felt it. Because when they feel appreciated, they don't just survive, they thrive. If you love an ISFJ, tell them. Don't just assume they know. Notice their effort, acknowledge their love, and remind them that what they give, not just what they say, is profoundly seen and deeply, deeply cherished. To all the ISFJs, we see you.